So, as Chucky said, we are starting off with Wrong Turn 2, Dad and, which came out 2007. And if you're familiar with the first movie, it's not too different. It's a group of reality show contestants who ran afoul of a family of somewhat deformed hillbilly folk in the forests of West Virginia. And some things happen, and some violence happens, and other things happen. And they have to survive and such. It's good stuff. And actually, it's a pretty decent sequel. Many horror fans, at least the ones I know, find it a pretty okay follow up, and a lot of that might be because of Henry Rollins, who when he's in the movie and his pretty good performance. The violence is pretty decent. I'm not sure if there's anything here quite as memorable as the first movie, but overall, I think it's a pretty okay sequel, even though it may not be amazing.
Yeah, I've only ever seen this one once before, and that was right as soon as it got released on DVD back in, I guess that was 2007. Or maybe that was 2008, somewhere around that time. And I remember thinking it was kind of meh, obviously, because I haven't bothered to watch it again since then, at least up until now. And, I didn't have... Let's just put it this way. I mean, it's definitely not a bad movie. I don't know if I'd quite get to the point where I'd call it decent. And there's a number of different reasons why, but I'm not sure where to start with, but I guess I'll just start by mentioning... I mean, the first movie was consistently well-paced. It was fast, and, it kind of moved at the exact same pace from start to finish. And now this one still kind of does, at least for the most part. I do feel maybe towards the beginning, like after the opening scene, like there's a little more characters here than I think there was in the previous movie to showcase, and they're trying to give some character development to, I guess, and I don't know, this one just feels like a little more like a more cheaper direct-to-video movie, which I think it was. I don't believe this ever got like a theater release like the first one did. And I don't know, that shines through a bit. I think the acting in the movie is a step down from the first one, clearly. From the good guys to the bad guys. Everyone just looks and acts like a shittier version of whatever we got in the first movie. Add on to the fact that, they've got this reality TV type plot to the movie, and I don't know if there's really many good reality type horror movies out there, at least not that I can think of. Or maybe at least not for sequels. I don't know about original movies, but I mean, it's not shoved down our throats throughout the movie. I mean, it's just used as an excuse for why they're out there, but still, it's something that doesn't really do anything for me. But I will say one thing from the original movie, and if people go back and listen to our review of that, they'll hear what we were talking about, but I felt that the opening to the original movie was kind of weak. And in this one, it's a bit better because you get a really good, maybe even the best kill in the movie, to be honest, in the opening scene. And usually whenever that happens, it kind of means the rest is all downhill. And for the most part, I felt like the majority of the movie was downhill. At least up until maybe the last, 20 minutes. Then it gets... I think from that point on, it's pretty decent. You get a lot of gore. There's a lot of action going on. But yeah, aside from pretty good opening and a pretty decent ending, I think the big chunk in the middle is what really hurts the movie for me, for a lot of those reasons.
Yeah, I think my personal biggest issue with the movie probably has to do with the antagonists. In the first movie we had obviously three deformed guys. This one is sort of like a family. There's a couple of females, couple of like three or four men. It's sort of how to keep in track who is who since all of them are deformed. And I mean, if you have a good eye, you might be able to do it. But I'll be honest, I don't know how many there were at the beginning, like 6 or 7, something like that. Which is, I mean, fine because it's not like the first movie ever said, hey, these are the only three deformed people, in this area. But it just felt a bit much, especially after somewhere in this movie it says it's only been like 30 years since some paper mill was spilling chemicals into the river that was causing this, and 30 years with a family, with as many members as this family has, it just seems a bit quick. So I'm not, I don't know, I didn't care much for that aspect of this.
Yeah, I just felt like the hillbilly type characters in this movie, they just still seemed a little more tacky, and I don't know. I could see that the main one is played by Ken Kersinger, who most people would recognize as the guy that played Jason in Freddy vs. Jason, and I just couldn't stop thinking about how he probably looks the same under that Jason mask when he was making that movie. So I just couldn't stop thinking of that and how stupid his face looked. Like, I wanted to punch him in the face.
Yes. I have nothing against that guy, so.
Well, I don't either. It's just, I don't know, something about that that lip thing that he's got in this movie is just drives me nuts. Yeah.
One thing I actually did sort of like about this movie that sort of surprised me, because like you, I had seen this once before, but it's been quite some time since I've seen it. I thought a lot of the characters were actually decent, and maybe the performances weren't always great, but you have like that one black guy in the movie who's a pretty good guy, so much so that the producer guy just didn't care for his style and just refused to engage in some, shall we say, carnal activities for the audience. But black guy was a pretty good guy. You have the guy's girlfriend, Mary Stone, played by Aliska Palladino, who had a somewhat surprising. She left the movie earlier than I expected. I was expecting this one to be one of the surviving people toward the end, and it's not quite how it happens. And even like, I think her name's Nina. She was sort of a goth-ish type chick. I thought she was, after a little while, it took her a little to defreeze. I thought she was a decent character too, so I was surprised by the characters, and especially like I mentioned earlier, though I'm not a person a big fan of the music of Henry Rollins. I do like his performance here, especially because I think it's just fun to see him fight back against these deformed people, and I know I have a fun time watching that. I just wish he had a slightly happier ending than what he might have had.
Yeah, me too. He probably was the most memorable thing in this movie, I guess. Or most memorable character, I'll say. Which brings me to a point that I think the writing of this movie is just a little too... there's a lot of stereotypical type characters in this movie. You know, you got the jock, you got the military tough guy, they've got one who's basically a slut. To be honest, I've seen that one woman in a couple of movies, and every single one she's been a slut. So, I guess there's certain roles you're born to play.
Or maybe she's not just acting.
Yeah. You know, you got the goth chick, or, you know, the one who's suicidal, and you got the one guy who's just cracking sex jokes. And,
okay, yeah, I was so over that guy as soon as he started talking.
Yeah. You know, you got the lesbian. I mean, it feels like the first movie, they didn't try and force so many different types of character traits down your throat. They were just random people.
Well, I think just to play devil's advocate, since they were doing a reality TV show, they obviously went out of the way to choose the specific stereotypes to begin with. So I think in a way it sort of makes sense in the context of the story.
I guess, but still, it doesn't change the fact that you still get those stereotypes. So, even though there might be a little more of a reason for it, it still feels like a lot of those other type of movies with those types of characters. Though I will say that, I mean, there was one nice touch where they had the one guy wearing a Battle Royale shirt, which seemed to be a good compliment to the type of show they were making, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I actually do watch some reality TV shows. Like they referenced in a reference they referenced Survivor in the movie, and I actually do enjoy Survivor for a few reasons. And this game show, at least based on my understanding, that seems like a complicated game show. I know they were just going for like trying to get a pilot going, just 6 episodes, but boy, this game show has a lot going on, and I'm not sure if that would catch on with the audiences.
Yeah. I mean, at first I was kind of happy to see that they had that, I guess, if you want to call him the gas attendant from the first movie, like the hillbilly guy. Like, as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, it's kind of nice seeing someone from the first movie. But I also, like, because I hadn't seen this movie in, almost, I don't know, 12, 13 years or whatever it's been, I've completely forgotten everything that happens in this movie, so I don't recall him being in the movie, so, but when I saw him, I was like, oh, geez, there's no way this guy's not an inbreeder. So, it didn't surprise me, the little twist there that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this movie, there's not nearly as much memorable things going on in this movie. Like the first movie is pretty simple. Just trying to survive against these, three freaks who are chasing after them. And this movie certainly has some, I guess, okay kills. I sort of liked some of the archery stuff. I think I also like the archery stuff from the first movie. And like I said, seeing Henry Rollins fighting back, that's probably the most fun I had in this movie. So I mean, I'd already say it's not a great movie, but I think for especially if you've seen some of the later sequels down the line, I think it's an okay movie. And like I said, I think a lot of people out there, at least in comparison to what happens later on, find this one at least okay, which I think is a pretty okay assessment of it. It may not be great, but you can probably have a decent time with it, even if it's not exactly the most memorable material.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm ready to rate it, but just before I do, I also wanted to say that that in that opening where she's driving in the car and she like runs into the hillbilly hick, whatever you want to call them.
I call them an American.
Okay. But immediately, as soon as like he got hit by the windshield, I was thinking, oh geez, looked like one of those guys trying to do one of those dodgy insurance claims. Those guys
Yeah.
who just run into a car on purpose. It just felt like that.
Indeed. Yeah, so I know I think I pretty much said it all. It's an okay sequel to a much better movie. It's serviceable. If you enjoyed the first one, you might have an okay time with this one. I wouldn't expect it to blow your mind or anything. Even like some of the I guess more gory scenes in this movie, it it just isn't anywhere near as memorable as what we had in the first one. So I think it's an okay movie. It really sort of straddles the line. I considered giving this one a 6, but like I said, I had fun seeing Henry Rollins fighting these people. Like we never got any type of that, like, I guess, really great fighting back in the first movie. I mean, this guy has some military stuff going on too, so I had a fun time with that. So I'm just gonna give this one an average rating of a 7 out of 10. It's not great, it's not terrible, it just sort of is, which is more than you can say for some of the sequels past this point. So 7 out of 10 seems like a fair rating.
I was actually ready to give this a 5 out of 10 up until the point where like the last 20 minutes where we started to get some, fairly good action and gore. I mean, the movie throughout kind of has, gory kills, but I mean, outside of that, everything else was kind of was not annoying me, but it just felt like really kind of like cheap and generic, and yeah. So I will give the movie a 6 out of 10, which, is my usual rating for an okay movie, and I think that's the best way to describe this one. It's okay. I do feel that this one, aside from being a little more cheaper and generic than the first movie and having, slightly worse acting than the first one, I also feel this one lacks the tension that we found in some of the scenes from the first movie as well, which was a big part of what made the first movie good. And that's not really here.